tell it again.
Okay. If I already told this, too bad.
Listen again.
Well, what's funny to me is I was doing something else and she came up and started talking to me and I turned around and I was like, oh. And I showed her my tattoo, which is huge of her. It goes from the inside of my elbow to my wrist. And she looked at it and one of the things she said to me is she said, I have one question. Why does it say wicked? And I was like, and she said, I'm the hero of that story. Mm-hmm. And she said, have you watched the story? Have you read? Snow White is the villain of that story. And I was like, what? Yeah. And I'm like trying in my head to kind of make that work. But it made me think of a phrase that I had heard. And I know that we've had this conversation before, is that nobody thinks they are the villain of their own story. Mm-mm. No matter how horrific you are, you believe that somehow your actions are justified and that you are not the villain of your story. And what's funny is, my younger daughter was there, and we're talking to her, and she said, Mama, how is she not the bad guy? Mm-hmm. I mean, she sends Snow White out with the huntsman to be killed and whatever. Yeah. It's like, but does she? Yeah. That's just Snow White's version of the story. How do we know? Yeah. I mean, because when you watch things like Maleficent, where it gives you an entirely different spin, or the new Cruella, granted it's all fiction, but it all gives you a not only palatable but believable way that's like, this isn't really the story. Nope. This is the story. This is how this became twisted because somebody did or said. Have you seen Wicked?
The musical?
Yeah. Yes, I thought so. Well, the whole thing is that the Wicked Witch of the West is made out to be wicked. Yep. But she's not wicked. No, she's not wicked. In the story of Wicked, she's not wicked at all. No. She's misunderstood. Yep. And she's unpopular. And she is going against society and culture and what is expected of them. And therefore, they brand her as wicked. Yep. And so it just made me it made my head spin a little bit. Yes, she's a fictional character. Yes, she's just an actress playing a part in Disneyland. But it did really start my head to going in that direction of like, again, nobody thinks that they are the villain of their own story. No.
Well, I have a lot to say about this. One thing being that somebody, going with hero and villain, somebody will always think you're the villain. Always, no matter what it is. You know what I mean? Even existing. Being a brown person in a sea of white people, lots of people will label you the villain strictly on the skin color. Right. Or being queer, or whatever. You will be labeled a villain at some point. You will never always be...
Never always?
Never always. You won't always, is what I meant. Be, like, the good guy, or the hero, or whatever. And I think that's fine. Let that be, right? You don't need to be the hero. I think what's important is that you do choose yourself, right? I do think that I hate the hero arc in most stories. Yes. We've had this conversation. I'll get to that in a second. But the one thing that the hero arc in all stories does show us is that they go through trials, they go through tribulations, they go through shit, and they come out at the end successful, no matter what. Like, even take Odysseus from the Odyssey. He's trying to get home for 13 damn years. You know what I mean? Gets trapped on islands and is trying to...
I thought my drive home was long.
Girl! But 13 years. And, like, his wife is being pursued by multiple suitors, and his son is, like, forgetting who he is, whatever. But he eventually makes it home, and eventually is then, like, the lord of his castle or whatever the fuck. Again. But he goes through a bunch of shit, right? All of his men are turned into pigs, like... Girl, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Right. And so...
Thank you, Cersei.
Exactly. But they're still considered great heroes, no matter how many times they fucked up or failed, right? So I think that's the important thing. Now, why I hate the hero is because the hero is always based off of obnoxious white men, for the most part. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I don't like Harry Potter I don't like most of Harry Potter anymore, but I don't like Harry Potter specifically, that character. I think he's whiny and obnoxious, and everyone's like, well, he was abused. And I'm like, okay, then he should want help more so. The fact that he's like, I can do it all on my own, yet his ginger friend and the smart girl get him out of fucking everything. If it wasn't for the old wizard. But there's a definite formula that this follows. And, like, if you can take so many movies. So, like, there's an example I found that has, like, Simba, Harry Potter, Batman, Luke Skywalker, Cinderella, Frodo Baggins, and Mowgli. And they all were like adopted by two outcasts who had a main villain that they were against, and how they all to try to take over. The villain was trying to take over Middle Earth or the Pridelands or the Kingdom, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot of it is like formulaic. It's just the same story regurgitated, but it's always often it is like they are conformist and they want to be accepted into like the system that is. But there's a concept of like the anti-hero, which is the person who's like Katniss Everdeen, right? Who like is kind of like a badass in her own right, and isn't like trying to conform to anything. She's trying to change it and take it down. And that's more important, I think, because I think the hero journey of someone trying to conform to a society that doesn't accept them is a stupid role to have. But it's just a frustrating, you know what I mean? I think being the hero isn't, I just don't think that it's what it's cut out to be. I think that it's formulaic at best, and I think it's pretty short-sighted, right? There's a climax, and then they always end up getting what they want, or quote-unquote what they need.
Right.
And they're changed, and they're a different person, but it's just based on this idea of conformity, and I don't think that's helpful, especially in look, if everyone conformed to what is happening in the world, then the world would die quicker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just think that people should focus on the anti-hero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the other thing that made me want to talk about this is I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, which is Very That with Delta and Raja.
Okay.
Both from RuPaul's Drag Race, but also very, very long careers in drag and in the greater Los Angeles area. But one of the things Delta said, it was Delta, or one of them, I think it was Delta, said that everyone believes that they are the hero of their own universe. And what's funny about that is, one of the things I realized about myself is when I do something beneficial to someone else, I expect a bigger reaction. Like, I did this great thing for you. Thank you's nice, but I wanted it to be like, wow, that was amazing. And I realized that is my own crazy expectation.
Yeah.
That I want to have like this hero's, whatever for some small task. And it's silly, but because I was trying to figure out why it was that I was often disappointed in kind of how things went down. And through some self, reflection and whatever, I was like, well, it's because you really have unrealistic expectations of the world. And you have unrealistic expectations of how people should react. And not just how, and it is how they should react.
Yeah.
They should react with thank you.
Yeah.
But there doesn't need to be a parade thrown in your honor because you did a good thing. And I think because I did a lot of looking into that, I think because growing up, I didn't get a lot of, I'm proud of you, or that was great, I'm glad you... I'm kind of always searching for that. And just learning that about myself, it was like, okay, I can kind of let that go.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to figure out, I was like, what is my problem here?
Yeah.
And it was that I wanted to be treated more like the hero of the story. Like, I had done some amazing thing, and it was like, well, calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down, sister. You didn't do really anything amazing. You did something good, but you're supposed to.
But that's like baseline. Yeah, right?
Yes,
Exactly.
Right. It's just that. It's... that whole thing I've also heard when people say, well, I should be getting some kind of kudos for doing my job. No, that's your job. If you go above and beyond, like, you ended up working a lot of extra shifts to pull them through. Yes.
Yeah.
You trained everyone else there because your boss got sick. You did something above and beyond your pay grade.
Sure.
Yes.
I also
you should
feel,
get something extra.
Sure. I also feel the opposite of that is I don't think you should do any work above your pay grade. Full stop. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like...
Well, certainly if you're not going to be somehow compensated for it, I agree.
Oh, agreed. Right. And I think more so companies are learning that what people are being compensated is not. It's being undercompensated, right? Like most companies, people are trying to revamp because there's like walkouts. You know what I mean? People are trying to hire and no one wants to work. And I don't say no one wants to work like, get off your ass and go back to work. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
No,
I'm just saying...
Kardashian, that is not what you mean.
Yeah, everyone don't work. See how the system functions when nobody wants to work. Do you know what I mean? When everyone decides to stop. And I know that takes a lot more steps than that, but I think it's a good point. And I get what you're saying is that if, you know what I mean, if you want to be, you know, work hard, get paid for it, whatever, but the system will just take advantage of you. The system will always take advantage of you, no matter what. You can be best friends with your boss. The system will always use you.
Yeah.
And, like, if you find a situation in which it doesn't, good for you. But, like, it will always take advantage of you. That's all I have to say.
I mean, it was like if you have a job that pays you, you know, overtime, so you are getting time and a half or double time or whatever. How that I've never had that kind of job.
Right.
I mean, I'm self-employed now, and so I don't even pay myself. No, I'm just kidding. I don't appreciate me at all. But no, it's like if you have a job that you automatically you work over, you get more money. Okay, that's at least something for something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to do my job and your job because you're lazy or whatever. And why? I'm not getting anything extra for that. I'm not getting paid for that. I'm not getting compensated. I'm working harder and I'm hating you because you're not doing your job.
Well,
and
also,
so I'm stressed out.
What is my base pay? Are you paying me minimum wage or are you already paying me $20 an hour? So then when I get paid time and a half, you know what I mean? Like, are you paying me the minimum you can pay me? And you know what I mean? And still call that legal? Or are you actually taking care of me? Or are you expecting me to rely on working holidays and nights and weekends and overtime to get more money, right? Or are you paying me a livable wage?
Right.
And I think that benefits in livable wage is now such a hot topic. That's why there are so many companies trying to unionize and successfully unionizing.
Yes.
I just think if companies wanted their employees to love them, then they should behave better.
Huh.
And you're not behaving better. So guess what? They found someone who'll treat them right.
Right. On that note. One of the things we kind of touched on earlier is about being burnt out. And one of the things that I've really noticed is how it's right now, especially, is so prevalent. That everyone, because of the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic, I don't think people weren't burnt out before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic pushed it to the limit of people going, oh God, I have been dealing with this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And now it's just come to be right in front of my face and I cannot deny it, can't escape it. I am burnt out.
Yep.
And for me, what that means, I'm burnt out on so many things where it's shit that I'm expected to do and I don't want to do.
No.
And it's stuff where, like, societally or whatever that you're expected to do, but why? So
it's funny because the definition of burnout is a condition experienced by workers and other professionals in which they develop depression-like symptoms as a result of aspects of their role. But when it's not just work, when it's work and like being a worker, being a mom, you know what I mean? Just example, being a mom, being a wife, being, you know, a volunteer, being whatever, all the things you're doing and everything, being a human fucking being in this world that is falling apart. Yeah, everything burns you out. Everything, every aspect of life is exhausting, right? So,
right. Well, and for me, I think it really came to the forefront when my salon was closed down and I was then homeschooling my children. And I know a lot of people are like, well, you're not really homeschooling. Yes, I really was, because in the beginning, everyone was so disorganized. And understandably, it happened so quickly. Everyone was so disorganized that there would be like, well, here's a link. Go to this link. Well, half the time the links were broken. And they didn't work. And it came to a thing where it's like, I was trying to teach my children. I have a high school education. I'm smart, but I have a high school education. I know how to do these things. I don't know how to teach these things. Yeah. And so I also had children who were revolting against the system themselves because it's like, you're not my teacher, you're my mother. I shouldn't have to be in class at home. I'm at home on my computer. I should be playing. And it did, you know, your the definition that you read is so true, because it was like, it started to formulate these real feelings of depression and whatnot. And I was like, what is going on? I mean, yes, I'm upset because the world is a shithole. And yes, I can't leave my house except for in extreme things, whatever. But it was that whole, I'm in a weird situation that I am not managing well.
Yeah.
My children